Picture a city reduced to ash, deciding that the way to announce its comeback to the world isn't to hide the wreckage, but to melt it down and build something taller than the most famous tower on Earth. That's exactly what happened here, and in a few minutes, you're going to be standing inside a structure that is, quite literally, part battlefield and part dream. Welcome to Walking Tour of Japan, a podcast dedicated to bringing you a new adventure somewhere in Japan with every episode. Each week, we'll travel to a different destination, from ancient temples and stunning gardens to fascinating cities, historic landmarks, and hidden gems tucked away across this incredible country. If you're gearing up for your own trip, head over to northstartravelers.com, where you'll find gear recommendations to help you travel smarter, plus a full list of our other podcast shows covering destinations around the world. If you love discovering new places and planning your next adventure, follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving a positive review goes a long way in helping others find it. Now let's explore Japan. You're standing at the base of Foot Town, the wide 4-story building that anchors this whole complex, and above you, the lattice of red and white steel climbs 333 meters into the Tokyo sky, about 13 meters taller than the tower that inspired it in Paris. The color scheme isn't a design flourish, by the way, it's international law. Any structure this tall has to be painted in those alternating bands so aircraft can spot it from a distance. To understand why this tower exists at all, you have to picture Tokyo in the early 1950s. A city still climbing out of the rubble of the Second World War, its television broadcasters multiplying faster than any single antenna could serve. Japan needed one central tower tall enough to beam a signal across the entire Kanto region, and the government wanted something more than function. They wanted a symbol, proof, visible from every neighborhood that the country was standing back up. So they turned to a structural engineer who had made his name designing buildings that could survive earthquakes, and they gave him an almost impossible brief. Look to the west for inspiration, but build something better. He studied the Great Lattice Tower in Paris and decided he could make his version taller while using less material. A lighter, smarter skeleton engineered to flex rather than fight when the ground shakes. Built to withstand tremors twice as strong as the 1923 earthquake that had devastated this same city a generation earlier. Here's the detail that tends to stop people in their tracks. Post-war Japan was desperately short on steel, so roughly a third of what you see rising above you didn't come from a mill at all. It came from American military tanks damaged and abandoned after the Korean War, melted down and reforged into girders. Instruments of war, recast as a beacon of peace. Construction crews worked around the clock, and the whole thing went from groundbreaking to grand opening in about a year and a half, a pace that still seems almost unbelievable today. Step inside Foot Town now, and the mood shifts from history to something more playful. This base building is packed across its levels with shops, an aquarium, arcades, and a scattering of restaurants and cafes, and it's worth a slow lap before you head up. You'll pass souvenir counters, a crepe stand that's become something of a local institution, and enough neon and noise to remind you that this is still very much a living, breathing part of the city, not a museum piece. When you're ready, make your way to the elevators for the main deck, 150 meters up. The ride is quick and the payoff is immediate. Floor-to-ceiling glass wrapping the entire level, and if you're brave enough, a small reinforced window built right into the floor so you can look straight down at the streets below. Give yourself a moment here. Tokyo unfolds in every direction, a dense weave of rooftops and highways stitched together by rivers and rail lines, with Tokyo Bay glinting somewhere out past the skyline. If you've booked the extended tour, this is where things get a little more theatrical. A small elevator carries you halfway up to a transfer point where you're offered a complimentary drink and a chance to have your photo taken. Prints are available on your way back out, no pressure to buy. From there, a second elevator wrapped in geometric mirrors and shifting LED light lifts you the rest of the way to the top deck, 250 meters above the city. The top deck is smaller and more intimate than the level below, a circular space that trades sprawling square footage for altitude. It's still the third highest observation deck anywhere in Tokyo. Directly beneath you, you'll notice a cluster of dark tiled rooftops and a wide swath of green. That's Zojoji Temple and the park that surrounds it. A 600-year-old Buddhist complex that predates this tower by centuries and somehow still holds its own against it. On a clear winter morning, look west past the skyline and you may catch Mount Fuji sitting quietly on the horizon. A quick tip worth knowing before you plan your visit: arrive right at opening or drift in during the last hour before closing, and you'll trade the midday crowds for something close to solitude. Plus, the rare chance to watch the city shift from daylight into its evening glow without moving from your spot. And if you're visiting on a weekend and don't mind a bit of exercise, this tower still has an open-air staircase most visitors skip entirely in favor of the elevator. Climbing it yourself gives you a completely different, almost architectural relationship with the structure than gliding up in silence ever could. Make your way back down through Foottown, and before you leave the area, it's worth ducking into the park just beyond the tower's shadow, rather than heading straight for the train. Most visitors photograph the tower from directly underneath and move on, but a few minutes walk into the quiet, tree-lined grounds nearby gives you an angle most people miss entirely. The tower framed by temple rooftops and old pine trees, a much stiller, more contemplative version of the postcard shot everyone else is taking. Before you go, let's talk about where to eat. A short walk from the tower's base, RISE WIN Brewing Company, KAMIKATZ Taproom pours its own craft beers in a rustic, laid-back space. A good stop if you're looking for something casual and cold after all that climbing. Back inside Foottown itself, RED Shokudo serves up straightforward, comforting Japanese dishes, an easy option if you'd rather not wander far. And if you want to turn the meal into an occasion, Tokyo Shiba Tofuya Ukai sits just steps from the tower in a sprawling traditional garden, serving refined tofu-based kaiseki courses in a setting that feels like it belongs to an entirely different century. While you're in the neighborhood, there's more worth seeing than the tower alone. Zojoji Temple, the very complex you look down on from the top deck, is a working Buddhist temple with roots stretching back to the 14th century and a striking red gate worth walking through in person. Shiba Park, which wraps around the temple, is one of the oldest public parks in the country and makes for an easy, unhurried stroll. And if you're up for a slightly longer walk, the Roppongi district and its Mori Art Museum sit within reach, offering a completely different, sleeker side of the city to contrast with everything historic you've just experienced. Take one last look up before you leave. This tower has stood here for well over half a century now, watching newer, taller structures rise around it across the city, and it has never quite been outshined. It doesn't need to be the tallest anymore to matter. It stands as a reminder that a country flattened by war chose, of all things, to rebuild upward, to take what was broken and turn it into something that still catches the light every single evening. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Before you go, a few quick things: subscribe so you never miss a destination, leave us a positive review to help others find the show, and share this episode with someone who loves exploring Japan. And if you're hungry for more adventures beyond Japan, visit northstartravelers.com to explore our other podcast shows and browse gear recommendations for wherever your next journey takes you. Your support means the world and keeps these adventures coming. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next walk.